Okay, everybody, it looks like we've got everybody registered and in the room, so we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time today to join us. My name is Travis Lamont. I work at Analytics 8, and I am the Click Practice Lead. And today we're going to go over the supply chain analytics offering that we have at Analytics 8. So a little bit of a background. As I said, I am the Click Practice Lead here at Analytics 8. But prior to really focusing on the Click technology, I worked for about 10 years in the procurement industry, specifically around supply chain and index analytics, working with spend analytics, inventory management, and the like. So a lot of that work that I've done has sort of influenced the supply chain analytics that we're going to take a look at here today. So in terms of an agenda, we're going to briefly discuss some of the importance of supply chain. We're going to take a look at the analytics application that we've developed, as well as then going into how you can set up your application and ending with any questions that anybody may have. So let's go ahead and jump into the importance of supply chain. So I'm sure anybody who is sort of seen the media, watched TV, gone to any website, you should be pretty aware of the impact that we're currently feeling in the supply chain due to COVID. COVID is disrupting supply chains across pretty much every industry that we can think of. And it's not only in the access to be able to go shopping and go into the different stores. It's affecting a lot of manufacturing and distribution company, their ability to maintain their operations. One of the things that we oftentimes don't think about is that for a lot of these factories, a lot of these companies, there are certain supplies that are required for them to keep their businesses operational. And we see that oftentimes when there's a disruption in the market, when things such as lubricants, resins, silicone, things like that, that really come from certain areas in the world, when there's disruptions to those products being freely available, it really starts to impact not only those industries that directly deal with that product, but a lot of industries who require that for their business to keep maintenance, repair, and operation going. And so we see that that's a huge issue currently, but it's not an exception. It's not as though this is the first time we're seeing disruptions to the supply chain. In fact, it's pretty much the rule as opposed to the exception. I remember working in direct materials back in 2011 when the earthquake and the tsunami hit Japan. And we noticed that a lot of the resins and a lot of the raw materials were greatly impacted by that event. And we see that happening all over the world on a consistent basis. So that's why having a understanding of your supply chain, it's why that's so critical, because these disruptions to the supply chain are going to continue to happen. And it's important for companies to be able to not only understand where they're at risk, but to be able to have the analytics to come up with contingency plans and come up with different strategies to deal with these disruptions as they occur. And that's really where the supply chain analytics offering is coming in. And it's focusing on really three primary benefits. The first is to be able to visualize the geographic composition of your supply chain, right? And what does that basically mean? Simply put, it's being able to understand where are your supplies and your products coming from, right? So the lubricants that you use, the abrasives, the valves, the raw materials, such as maybe lumber, aluminum, metals, where are they coming from geographically, so that you know if disruptions happen in those areas, what are the different contingency plans that you have to put in place. It's also going to help you identify your risk categories. So what are the categories that are mission critical for your operations to keep afloat? Are there certain products that you could deal without, right? Are there certain products that you don't have, your machinery won't run? So, again, some of the great examples are things like lubricants, abrasives, any of those MRO supplies that you need on a day in, day out basis to keep things going. So that even when we return back to normal and we're able to all, return to work in somewhat of normal conditions, you have the supplies necessary to go ahead and keep those production lines going. And the third benefit of supply chain analytics is really giving yourself the ability to create those contingency plans for those areas and those geographies that may be at risk, right? Oftentimes, a given category may be sourced through multiple suppliers for different regions, for different factories or plants or your locations. By knowing who are the suppliers for some of those other areas, it's really going to help you have that ability to pivot when you need to, if a certain supplier or if a certain region is compromised due to any force majeure event. So let's go ahead and take a look at our supply chain analytics application and really dive into how this type of analytics can help you create these sorts of contingency plans. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into our supply chain analytics dashboard here. And this is going to give you the ability first to start to see how much spend you're dealing with, how much spend across how many suppliers and with all the different transactions in your system. So looking at that first area that I talked about, right, visualizing the geographic composition of your supply chain, this type of analysis really allows you to visualize and see where are those products coming from. And when you have an analysis like this, you can really pinpoint a certain location and see what would be affected if there was a force majeure event that happened in that region. So for this example, I'll take a look at South America, and let's say there was severe flooding or an earthquake that happened in that region. By simply selecting out that region, I can start to see what are my categories that could potentially be affected by that event. This really gives you that capability to visually see where are the products that you need coming from, where are you at risk, right? So as you start making selections in the application here, you can see that everything's sort of filtering based off of those selections. So this is really a technology that allows you to very quickly and easily make these filters on your data to pinpoint, right, that exact need that you have. In addition, right, we can start to take a look at those categories that are mission critical to your operations. So I can look here at my criticality, right, and I organized my criticality by low, medium, high, and then critical. So I'm going to just specifically look at those categories that are critical to my operations. And I can start to take a look at how many suppliers do I have within those categories. So if a given supplier, let's say, has a disruption, let's say a bankruptcy, any sort of disruption, am I reliant on simply one supplier? Or do I have other suppliers that I can pivot to? Right? And this is where you start identifying those risk areas. So for example, in my intermodal category, I really only have 3 suppliers that I'm utilizing. In this case, I'm utilizing Crowley Maritime, Estes Express, and Schneider National. Where can I look to supplement these suppliers if there's an issue that I have? And where is it going to affect my business? So it's not only looking at where the suppliers are located in terms of the products that they're providing you, but you also have the ability to look at which plants and which areas are going to be affected by that. So when we bring the data in, we're looking at not only the origin of those products and services, but the destinations as well, so that you can start to see what is that impact, right? Another area that you can start to work on here is creating the contingency plans, right? So for example, if I were to take a look at my lubricants, I can see for my specific factories located around the country that I'm at risk, maybe not overall in terms of the amount of suppliers I have, but each of these individual factories may be at risk. For example, in Atlanta, I only have one supplier who I'm currently using in that region, right? So this is going to give me visibility into not only where I have risk overall at an organizational level, but where do I have risk at certain plants, right? Certain locations, to make sure that they're still open and operational. Once I'm able to identify maybe some of these areas where I have some risk. So for example, Atlanta, we're only utilizing Motion Industries to supply our lubricants. I can take a look across my larger organization to identify those contingency plans. So if we do have some issues with that supplier, I see that I'm also engaging AIT, Fastenal, Granger, and some of my other locations. So I can start to make some calls, put in some feelers out to see if these suppliers are able to take over for those mission critical items, if there is a problem within that region or within for that given supplier. So this is really the benefit of an application like this, is that it allows you to have that visibility, but then take the necessary next steps to help your business be able to weather the storms that are obviously going to be coming in the future due to supply chain disruptions. So in addition to seeing the information out here on our dashboard in a more visual sense, you can also take a look at the scatter plot. Now, this is something that I've used repeatedly over the years when engaging in different strategic sourcing events, but really with an opposite sort of intent. Oftentimes in strategic sourcing, we talk about consolidating the supply base to maximize our savings, right? So oftentimes when a strategic sourcing event will kick off, we look at, what are those categories where we can limit the number of suppliers we're using so that we can get the best bang for our buck, right? The largest discounts with the suppliers that we're using. When we talk about supply chain, though, we need to take into consideration that as we're limiting our supply base to maximize savings, we're increasing the risk of disruptions to service when these force majeure events occur. So where traditionally I may look to use a scatter plot such as this to see those areas where I have a large amount of suppliers with the most amount of spend, to see where maybe I could consolidate the spend to a smaller amount of suppliers. Here, what I would look at more is taking a look at those industries and those categories where I have a small number of suppliers to see where is my risk within these categories. Where are the areas that I need to do some further investigating on to make sure that I have coverage just in case these suppliers of these areas are compromised. So in this example here, looking at engineering services, I really only engage one supplier for those services. And if that's mission critical to my operations, I need to make sure that I have a contingency plan in place. Is there another supplier who provides the same service? Is that supplier, do they service my area or my locale? What are the steps that I maybe need to do with my relationship with that supplier to ensure that they have contingency plans on their end? So maybe they offer a completely specialized service that I can't get anywhere else, right? What can I do with working with that supplier to ensure that any disruption to their supply chain doesn't affect mine, that they have contingency plans in place, right? So this is going to give you that capability to really narrow down this type of information and create your action plans to prevent any disruption of your service. Finally, the application really gives you that line level visibility into this data, right? So all the data that's coming into the application that's feeding the analysis on the front end, all of it's available here for you to export out into your Excel, CSV, so that if you need to do further analysis outside the system, you certainly have that. Right? So that's the application at its highest level. It really is a pared down application with not too many bells and whistles, not too many complications, that serves the purpose of helping you with those disruptions within the supply chain area. So now that we've taken a look at the application itself, the question becomes, how do we set this up, right? How do you get this application up and running? How do you get your data into the application? So we'll talk about sort of how we've designed this so that it makes it easy for you and your organization to get started right away with this application. So it's a relatively simple process of loading the application into your Qlik environment. So if you're currently not a user of Qlik products, specifically the Qlik Sense environment, you have the ability to utilize the Qlik Sense Business option that is a free trial option that's available through Qlik, as well as some of the Qlik desktop capabilities that's only really going to be available until the end of June 2020. But these are some temporary free capabilities for you to sort of trial their software. But you're going to load the application into whatever environment you have within your organization. And then you're going to create a folder called Supply Chain and Analysis. And along with this application, we're going to provide you with the different data types that you're going to utilize to pull the data into your application. And we'll take a look at those in a second. But you're going to populate that data into one of the file types that's provided. So we're providing you with 3 different file types: Excel, CSV, and text. And we're also providing a system setup file that allows you to enter in what type of data file you're using, as well as a couple of thresholds that we'll take a look at. Once you've filled out the data within those files, you simply reload the application. Once the reload is completed, your data is now going to be fully operational within that application. So let's go ahead and take a look at the different files that I've referred to and the type of setup that you're going to need to do. So again, all of these files are available within the download, and you're going to want to paste those out onto your C drive into a folder called Supply Chain Analysis. Now, as I said, we provide 3 different file types. We'll go ahead and take a look at the Excel file here as an example. So when you download this application initially, it is going to have this sample data available for you. So it's simply a matter of copying and pasting your data into this Excel file. So we've populated it with some standard fields that would be common within a ERP system for your spend. So this allows you to indicate the source that data is coming from. So whether it's invoice data, PO data, P card, this, you can add all of those in. You just need to indicate what the source is. Right? You can have a transaction date, which that could reflect the PO date, invoice date, sales date, spend date, any type of date. Then you're going to indicate your supplier, some sort of ID that is associated with that transaction. Again, that could be something like a PO number, an invoice number. And then you're going to start to enter in the origin and destination information, right? So where are the products coming from and where they're going to. A lot of organizations already have this information within their ERP systems. But if this is information that you don't have within your system, there are a variety of websites that are out there that can actually help you to find the individual location of the supplier you're using, their plant, right, where these materials are coming from. In terms of destination, again, that's something that your organization should typically have, whether that's a plant location, whether that is a factory, your different corporate locations, whatever that destination is, that information can be provided here. We've also provided 3 different layers to a category hierarchy, and you're of course free to use whatever category hierarchy that works for your organization. All right, so if you happen to have 5 different layers or levels to your categorization, you can use some of the other fields, but this is going to give you sort of that quick and easy way to bring those categories into your system. And then we have that criticality that I talked about, where we looked at low, medium, high, and critical. You're able to break it out to whatever sort of nomenclature works the best for you, but you're able to add that into the system here. As well as then item code and item information, if you want to be able to get down to that specific level of, line level, transaction level detail information, you can certainly add it here. And then, of course, the spend and quantity, right? So how much spend you have and what sort of quantities are you ordering on that transaction. Additionally, we've provided 10 different rows here that we've just indicated of dimension 1 through 10 that really allow you to customize and bring in any additional data elements that are important to you within your ERP system. So these can be things like your different departments, your GL accounts, any of those additional pieces, departments, business units, regions, countries, all of that can be brought into any of these different dimensions. So you're free to sort of adjust this so that it works the best for you and your organization. So once you put your data into one of these file formats, you're then going to go into the system setup. And this Excel file is really just 3 different pieces of information that the system needs from you in order to pull the data into the system. All right. The first thing that you're going to need to indicate is what file type are you using? We provided the 3 different file types, but we assume you're going to use one of those 3, whether it's the Excel files, the text files, or the CSV files. So you just need to tell us what's the file type that you're going to be using. And then you want to indicate your lower and upper thresholds in terms of the risk that you'd like to indicate for the number of suppliers for a given category. So if you recall, when we were looking at the analytics and we were looking at the dashboard here, you notice we had a color coding here for the number of suppliers for a category. So the thresholds I set up were 5 and 10. So anything below 5 suppliers, I considered that a high risk for a given category. Anything over 10 suppliers in a given category, I considered that to be low risk. So you're able to identify the different levels of risk for your organization. So you don't have to necessarily look at the 5 and 11. You can establish whatever thresholds are comfortable for you and your organization. So once you have pasted your data into one of the 3 file types, you've indicated the file type within the system setup, as well as indicated those thresholds. Once you've done all of that, it's simply a matter of going into the application and clicking to load your data. It knows, since you put it on the C drive in that specific folder, it knows where to go. It knows the different fields to pull in. It knows how to organize everything. Once you click to load that data, you are going to have your data loaded within this system. It is as simple as that. We've tried to sort of make this as bare bones and as hands-off as we possibly could. And we hope we've accomplished that with creating this in a very simplified manner so that you can add your data in at your leisure. Okay. So that's the application. as well as how you get the data into the system. So what are we all together offering here? So the first thing is we're offering this application and the files that I discussed 100% free. There's no cost associated with it. There's no obligation associated with it. We're offering this so that we can help do our part to ensure that we don't see further layoffs, further unemployment, simply due to the fact that there weren't the supplies needed for people to be able to return back to work. So we'd like everybody to have access to this and to use it to help their organization avoid any of those sort of negative aspects that we see when we have these disruptions. Through 2020, we're also offering some additional support. So if you have any issues getting your data out of your system, the different fields that we saw, the different categories, the different files, if you need assistance with getting those pieces of data out of your system and identifying where they're located, we will absolutely get on a call with you and help you to identify those data elements and how to get them into the different files. Additionally, if you don't have categories assigned to your data through your ERP system, we can absolutely help walk you through some best practices on how you can assign categories to the spend within your data if that's not already there. Additionally, geographic information, we can help you out with that. There are certain resources out there that can help you identify where suppliers are located. So we can help steer you in the right direction if that's not information that you currently have. Additionally, if there are any errors you run into while following our process, we will happily get on a call with you and help you resolve and troubleshoot any of those issues. If you do have any issues loading the data or obtaining access to a ClickSense platform, we can walk you through that process. So nobody should be without the ability to load this application into an environment, even on a trial basis, and be able to walk through that system. And finally, we can provide you guidance on how you can adjust this application and really use this as a springboard to further analysis within your supply chain. So if you want to have this information updated on a more consistent basis, let's say a monthly or even a daily basis, we'd be happy to sit and talk with you of how you can do that, how you can update this application so that it's more than just a one-time. It is a more permanent part of your analytics. So we'd be happy to offer any of this additional support. Again, this is at no charge and with no obligation. Unfortunately, though, the application will be available for the foreseeable future, but any assistance you may need, we're at the moment offering that through 2020. Depending on the need and the demand, we may extend that further, but that's at least the time frame we're looking at this moment. So I hope this has been helpful and educational. So we'll go ahead and open this up to any questions that anybody may have.
Great, thank you. It looks like we have a question. Do we need separate software for this application?
Yeah, great question. So as I alluded to a little bit in the presentation here, this application works on the ClickSense platform. And Click is a data visualization software. And you can absolutely go out to Click's website and access, right now at least, there are two different ways that you could access this software for free. One is their desktop version, which, as I said, that will actually only be available until the end of this month, unfortunately. But they have a SaaS offering that anybody can sign up for and get a free 30-day trial. Now that trial should give you the ability to go ahead and test this out, make sure that you're able to pull the information in, as well as to perform some of the analytics but that should give you a starting point. Otherwise, if your organization already has ClickSense, you can certainly pull it into your existing platform. But that's one of the areas where if you need help with, obtaining the software, understanding any of the click-based software, we would be happy to help you out in that regards. Okay. Hopefully that answers the question.
Great, thank you. The next question is, what if we have multiple data sets?
Again, a good question. So when we took a look at the files that were provided, right? So right here, I have the spend CS file 1, Excel file, and text file. If you had multiple Excel files, let's say your data was just too large, or you wanted to keep it separate, as long as the beginning name is the same, so it should say spend CSV file, and then you can add as many files to this folder location. Just continue with the number. So for example, you'd maybe have spend Excel file 1, spend Excel file 2, spend Excel file 3, 4, 5, so on. Right, as long as that naming is the same, the application will actually pick up all the files as long as it follows that strategy. So you absolutely can pull in from multiple sources, such as your invoice, your PO, P card. If you have multiple PO systems across subsidiaries, you can pull that in as long as it maintains the file format of these files that we've provided. It should be able to pull it into the system without issues. Okay.
Great, thank you. And it looks like we have one more question. How do we assign the categories to our data?
Sure. So category assignment, hopefully, depending on the ERP system you have or that you're utilizing, you may already have some categories assigned within that system. They may be called your material codes. They may be called sourcing categories or item groups, something along those lines. But depending on your ERP system, you may already have that in your ERP. However, if that's not something that your system already has or that you already have identified, there's actually a variety of ways that you can assign categories to your data. We actually have another application that is available that is a category assignment engine that allows you to assign categories based on keywords within your descriptions or your item codes or the GL codes, right? You can use a variety of different fields. So that's one way you could address it. Other organizations that I've worked with, we see them assigning it based on suppliers, right? So if you maybe don't have that line level detail, if you maybe only have it at the supplier level, you could certainly assign it at that supplier level, and that could be done within whatever source system you have, if that is available within that source system, or you can certainly use the Excel CSV files to add that information in. Because of course, that's similar to the criticality field that we've added. That's something that you would need to sort of do an assignment, whether it would be lookups or another method. You'd have to assign that within the Excel, CSV, or text files. And again, that sort of falls under, definitely support that we would be willing and happy to provide anybody to help them walk through that and get a greater understanding. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
I think that was the last one.
Okay, perfect. Well, again, I appreciate everyone's time today. I hope this was beneficial. And if you have any questions, concerns, by all means, feel free to reach out to us at Analytics 8. And I hope everybody enjoys their day.
Thank you.